and we'll go ahead and get started. So the basis of this is understanding the lab reports that you guys may get from, Eurofins, PACE, some of the other industries, or some of the other contract labs that you guys deal with. This is basically just to understand kind I believe I muted myself. So
Yeah, I was wondering, Alex. I couldn't hear you for a minute.
I was trying to mute somebody who had feedback on there. Apparently, I muted myself. Okay, so basically, so the outline that we'll be going through today, we'll go over the zero discharge wastewater permit form, some of the zero dischargers that we have that form. We'll also go over the individual ones, some of you that submit them on monthly or quarterly basis. And then from there, we'll kind of dive into reviewing the example lab reports that you guys receive, some of the conversion factors, the qualifiers that are also listed on there, which I'm not sure if some of you deal with or kind of look at, the MDLs, and then we'll also open it up to questions here at the end. So most of you are familiar that submit to us on a monthly or quarterly basis that do discharge. These are kind of the three forms that are associated with the PRCC that you guys all are familiar with. This is kind of just a broad overview of what each of those pages look like. We'll kind of dive into each one of those separately here in the upcoming slides. So this is the first page. Most of the industries, you guys do an excellent job of filling this out. The biggest thing that we come across on here is to make sure that you do fill out the monitoring period correctly with the proper sampling time, what the date range is of that. Another big thing is down at the bottom of where it says time proportional, flow proportional, or grabs. Make sure that those do correspond with the times that you do collect those samples, and make sure that they fall under the proper boxes, the times, and just kind of double check those with your contract laboratory if they are the ones that are running those samples. Make sure that's transcribed properly onto those boxes. So this is the second page of that PRCC. Obviously, this is kind of what we'll be focusing on today, as far as where most of the mistakes are made. Like I said, we're just going to kind of do a broad overview right now, and then we'll kind of dive in as the PowerPoint goes on. Make sure that you guys are checking the concentration levels. Make sure you check the units of measure, because you could get 3 different types of units of measurement for those analytes. You could get milligrams per liter, you could get micrograms per liter, you could get nanograms per liter. So make sure that you take note of that. Same goes with the method detection limits. Make sure that you are checking the analytes for those, make sure it's milligrams per liter, nanograms per liter, micrograms per liter. And then also on another note, make sure that you are checking the correct sample type off to the side. Make sure that you are checking if it's a composite or a grab. Please do not leave those blank. Now, some of the analytes, obviously, they're already wrote in there, such as cyanide. Those are automatically grabs. Sulfide, oil, and grease are grabs. And then some of the batch dischargers, most of those will be grabs. So just make sure that we are checking those boxes. And then when you're also reading over your lab report, make sure that you're paying close attention to AA codes, J flags, U, BDLs, and AEs. And like I said, we'll dive into the lab reports a little bit more here soon. The last page of that, the signatory requirements, make sure that if you are the authorized representative, that we do get a wet signature. We, as part of our pretreatment program, we cannot take copies of signatures. So if we have received a copy of a signature, chances are we have sent it back to you and asked for a wet signature. So make sure that you are doing that and make sure that it is dated properly. We have had a few dated incorrectly, such as they were dated the month before. So make sure that you are going over that as well. And we cannot take scans or PDF copies currently of these. So going a little bit into zero discharge permits. Basically, you just have the one page to make sure that you are, correctly filling out the monitoring period, if that is a monthly requirement or a quarterly requirement. Make sure that you are signing the certification statement in ink. Like I said, no scans or copies of those signatures, and make sure that you are the authorized representative that can sign for the industry. Inez, do you have anything to add before I go on about the PRCCs right here?
I do not have anything to add.
Okay. So reviewing lab reports. I know most people probably in this room aren't lab analysts, so you're not accustomed to looking at some of the analytes or looking in depth at those. Maybe you see a number, just report it over and call it good. So we're going to kind of dive into this a little bit. We've got some pictures and descriptions of what you need to be looking out for when you receive those lab reports. So here's the first one. So as you can see off to the right, you've got two different lab reports. So what I have circled there is what you really need to be paying attention to. So on the first box up there, you'll notice it'll say the results ND, units of measure, milligrams per liter for cyanide. You've got the reporting limit. And then you've got the MDL, and then you have the last category off to the side, qualifiers. Those are kind of the main columns that you want to pay attention to, because as you look down there on that, sorry about that. As you look down there on available cyanide, you notice that there is UG, which stands for micrograms per liter. So this is where we see a lot of mistakes from, where you may just go down the column, read your result, and not be aware that there actually is a different unit of measure there. So some people will report that as 13.5, and they'll report the MDL as 1.8. So looking at that, you want to make sure that you take that number and convert it, which we will go over later in the PowerPoint presentation, the conversion factors for some of those analytes, which a quick Google search for those they'll show up for you, and it's fairly easy to do. So make sure that you are just not copying down the UG or the microgram per liter analyte. On the bottom picture, you'll notice you're looking over there and you'll see nanograms per liter. Okay, make sure that you do that conversion as well. Check the MDL, because you will have to change the MDL on that as well. Now, this one doesn't list any qualifiers on it, but we'll go over qualifiers in the next couple of slides. Another thing to note too is when you look at the results, you'll notice down there at the bottom for cyanide free and cyanide total that they do a result and they do an estimated value. You want to make sure that you are reporting the estimated value and not the results, because you notice that that result is lower. Now, in looking at that as well, that number is the same as the MDL on both of those analytes. So therefore, on your PRCC, you would want to make sure that you write down non-detect on your PRCC, or you could put less than 0.002 on there as well. So real quick, so you notice on the first picture up on the right-hand side, you'll notice that qualifier says N2. I just want you guys to take note of that. I'm not sure if it's actually noted here in the next slide or not, but so qualifiers, what they are is something may have happened during the run. That's why they put a qualifier down. So N2, I'm not sure what that exactly does, but on on the next page after this, it'll give a description on that. So what a qualifier is essentially is you're like when running a lab, like it's a QA QC deal where maybe the run didn't run properly, maybe the sample was out of hold time, maybe the recovery once they did the sample didn't get to the proper levels to make it actual sample or an actual compliant sample. So that's what a qualifier is. So in some of the lab reports, they'll actually include this in your lab report and off to the side. So I kind of circled the most common ones that you will see. So ND, obviously non-detect. And so the J flag, for those who don't know what a J flag is, that is a number that is in between your MDL and your reporting limit. So essentially, I mean, it's an accurate number. They just put a J flag in it just to say that it's in between those two numbers. U also indicates that it was not detected. So U and ND are kind of the same deal. Now, a big one, at least with this contract lab, is you look at H1 off to the side, and it says analysis conducted outside the EPA method holding time. You personally may have collected the sample, or the contract lab may have collected the sample on time, but it may not have been ran in the time allotted. So essentially, like total suspended solids is a 7-day hold time. They may have collected it on the first day, but ran it 8 days afterward, therefore making it an invalid sample. So if it's an invalid, if they run it outside of the hold time, we cannot accept it. So sometimes, we'll get back with you when we notice that lab report and we'll say, hey, the lab ran outside of hold time. We can't accept that sample. You will have to run it again. Now there's some other qualifiers on there too, which you'll see a lot, like L1, M1. Those are, more or less like they didn't recover enough samples, but it still makes the associated sample that was ran in compliance. So make sure that when you're looking over your lab reports, you notice those qualifiers and you go back and look at it to make sure that you guys are in compliance with those samples. Did I miss anything, Arnez, or is that good?
It's good.
All right, so we will move on. So conversion factors. I kind of touched on this a little bit. So the most common mistakes that we see are found on mercury and cyanide, because most of the instrumentation in the lab can go down to nanograms and micrograms. Contract labs will report those down to extremely small values. So as you're looking through there and you get the micrograms or nanograms on your cyanide or mercury, you have to make sure you convert that to milligrams per liter. So one microgram per liter equals 0.001 milligrams per liter. 1 nanogram per liter equals 0.000001 milligrams per liter. Now, the nanograms you'll find more or less on mercury alone. Cyanide really doesn't go down that low. The micrograms per liter, you will find more on the cyanide. So make sure you're going through the column, make sure you notice the unit of measure so that you can do the proper conversion factor and report it properly on your PRCC for your MDL and the actual analyte result. And then also some industries have a BOD conversion factor. Inez, would you mind explaining that a little bit, since I haven't really delved into that?
Okay, yeah, the BOD conversion factor, that's determined every year for each industry that has that's either in the surcharge program, or if you're permitted and you've got BOD loading on your permit as a permit requirement. Now, the BOD conversion factor, again, it comes out, it's determined every single year, and you receive the New Year's factor prior the December before you have to start using it. So December of this year, you'll be getting a new BOD conversion factor for for 2025. Now this again, make sure that if you do have BOD loading associated with your analysis or on your permit, then you use the correct conversion factor. Another thing I wanted to point out for this would be if you are the conversion, your permit is based on whether you run the COD analysis, and then the BOD loading is determined using this factor. You cannot substitute the 5-day BOD analysis for this BOD on your BOD loading. That's not a part of the permit. Some industries elect to run that as a check. However, that cannot be used as a substitute for running the COD analysis and using the BOD conversion factor. So that's all I've got to say for that particular.
Sorry. Okay. All right, so we'll get into MDLs now. So, or the minimum detection limit. So once again, you have the two pictures. Obviously, we circled some of the analytes that are in there. Make sure that you check the units of measure once again. You keep hearing us say it, check the units of measure, check the units of measure, because we cannot accept anything other than milligrams per liter. Now, if you contact your lab, they may be able to convert over from nanograms or another form of measurement to milligrams per liter. And in that way, all of your results that are reported back to you will be in milligrams per liter, and you won't have to worry about redoing the conversion factor. Sometimes also what we have found out as well is that some of the lab reports only have reporting limits. They don't have an MDL. So you won't have an MDL column. You'll just have an RL column. You will have to contact the contract lab in order to get those results as well, because we cannot accept the reporting limits for the MDLs on your PRCC. And then just so like in the previous slide, you notice also on there where I said cyanide is in micrograms, that kind of lines up here, and then mercury also down there at the bottom. I know the N kind of looks like an M, but make sure that you're paying attention to that, making sure you're converting nanograms to milligrams per liter. And then as stated previously, make sure that you are reporting the estimated value and paying attention to the less than or equal sign, and then coding it correctly on your PRCC. So that kind of concludes everything. So we left about 7 minutes for questions. So I'll leave this open. If anybody has any questions, you can unmute yourself, and we can answer which questions you guys have. Or if nobody wants to speak up, you can also message us privately or email us the questions as well. So also, here's our contact information in case you need to reach either of us. My contact information is listed above. Inez's is listed below. So we're hoping with this training now you guys understand a little bit of what we're looking at when you submit these, because I know it's kind of annoying when you'll hear from us saying, hey, listen, I need you to change an MDL 1 digit. Well, there's a reason behind that, because we are regulated by the EPA for our program, and we have to make sure that we are doing things properly as well. So if there's a digit that's off, unfortunately, we do have to have that corrected. Inez, do you have anything else to add?
The only thing that I have to add is, again, I just kind of reiterate what Alex said. If you have any questions concerning any of these the topics that we covered on here, or anything about the industrial pretreatment program, we're here to help answer questions, or just if you needed to find out any other information on regulations, the regulatory requirements for that you may have, then feel free to contact one of us. That's all I've got.
Yeah, just make sure you guys reach out to us. We are here to help. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. If your coordinator is not available, Inez or myself will answer it to the best of our abilities. And if we can't answer that, we will find you an answer as best as we can. Just make sure that, moving forward, that we can correct these issues as far as the MDLs and units of measure, and we don't have to send anything back to you guys. So with that being said, I will go ahead and I'll stop the recording.